My name is Gabriel Aquiles, and there is something that I would like to tell you. In this video, I'm going to explain to you peoples all about the 10 commandments. What are they and what do they mean? This first commandment is pretty straightforward by the looks of it. You accept that the Lord is your God and that you should not be worshipping any other person, nor any other living entity, nor any other inanimate object as a god. Oh, and for the record, yes, even your phone, computer, or even your best friends or parents, shit, even President Donald Trump or any other world leader can technically be considered as gods. In other words, this means that you should not be creating idols and worshipping them. In other words, this means creating physical representations of what appears in the heavens and on earth, and the water below it is a major sin. Meaning that you are not allowed to worship things like carved statues of idols made out of God and his servants, instead of just worshipping the real God. This commandment also emphasizes the importance of God existing as spirit, because he is simply not fixed to any physical form. Now, what does it mean to take the Lord's name in vain, you may ask? Well, to put it simply, using God's name in anger, frustration, or as a meaningless exclamation are all one way of taking the Lord's name in vain, because it shows the disrespect or otherwise casual use of the Lord's name in a real world context. Using God's name to swear, insult, or desecrate this image is considered an act of blasphemy, which is also another way one would take the Lord's name in vain. Swearing false oaths in order to lie and hypocrisy, that is, professing to be a follower of God but yet in reality decides to live a life that misrepresents him and gives him a bad name, in general, are also ways of taking the Lord's name in vain. Misusage of God's authority, that is claiming God's endorsement as a justification for an action or narrative, is also another way of taking the Lord's name in vain. The reason why this is all a sin because it exemplifies the lack of reverence, awe, and fear that the name of the Lord deserves. Okay, so if we go back to the book of Genesis, you will remember that God has spent 6 days creating heaven, the earth and its seas and all the life in it. And on the 7th day is when the Lord had rested, sanctifying and blessing all the life within the earth. The 6 days of labor in the week and the 7th day being the Sabbath day that we should all keep holy is the commemoration over the divine act of God's creation process. To honor both of your parents is to not only respect and value their overall presence and significance that your parents have within your life, but to also provide care for them for when you are older. As a child, honoring your father and your mother is when you heed their instructions and respect the God-given authority that they have over you. As an adult, the way you honor your father and your mother is to not only show that you care about them, but to make the necessary sacrifices needed to help support them as they near the end of their lives. Appreciate and embrace everything you have been taught by both of your parents and learn how to forgive. So from how I view this specific commandment seems to be very vague and broad. You could argue that the definition of killing in terms of this commandment is limited to only killing another person. I disagree, as the concept of killing in this commandment can also not include just killing another person, but also killing yourself as well. This is called suicide. The concept of killing in this commandment can also be applied for whenever you decide to harm yourself or another person in any way without either party even dying, or at least having thoughts about killing yourself or another person. Adultery is the voluntary and consensual act of intercourse between a married person and someone else that is not their spouse. This commandment upholds the importance of the sacrament of marriage. Adultery is basically a corruption to the sacred union God established between a husband and a wife, leading to marital infidelity and the deterioration of the marriage. Secondly, within the New Testament, Jesus told us that viewing another person with lust can be considered adultery by heart, which means that the act of adultery can also include sinful thoughts about wanting to cheat on your spouse, because adultery is a form of cheating. Oh, and by the way, in case you were wondering, yes, watching pornography and getting off to it can also be considered a form of adultery, as once again, Jesus advises us about being against viewing someone else in a lustful manner. This one's pretty much self-explanatory. This means that you should learn how to respect someone's property and refrain from taking another person's assets without permission, whether that would be physically stealing or making deals with a malicious intent. This commandment can also be applied to much broader contexts beyond physical theft, such as copying someone's work and stealing their credit, thus violating intellectual property, downloading pirated material from the internet, or by taking advantage of other people. To put it simply, bearing false witness against someone is to lie, defame, slander, or gossip about another person. This is something that can give damage to their overall reputation. Simply by verbally insulting another person can also be considered as bearing false witness against another person. In biblical terms, the word covet does not mean the appreciation for something that you like, rather than meaning the act of intense desire and selfishness for something that belongs to someone else. This act of envy can then lead to resentment, jealousy, greed, and even stealing. This commandment is to also teach people about contentment, where everyone should be grateful and satisfied for what they already have in their possession. Now here's the real question. Where within the Bible can we find the 10 Commandments? Well, the answer to that simply is that the 10 Commandments can be found within the book of Exodus chapter 20 verses 2 to 17, book of Exodus chapter 34 verses 11 to 26, as well as in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 5 verses 6 to 21. All the 10 Commandments that I have mentioned earlier in this video can be divided into two parts, where the first 4 commandments focused on the principle of your relationship with God. The rest of the 6 commandments are focused on the relationship of all others around you, focusing on the principles of morality and ethics in terms of being around other people. All of these 10 commandments mentioned earlier in this video can also be still applied within the everyday life of people, as those commandments provide the framework for ethical decision making, respect for humans and all other forms of natural life, honesty, and the responsibility for others around you. In conclusion, the 10 Commandments are one of the basic core principles whenever it comes to practicing Christianity as a whole, alongside learning the 7 deadly sins and virtues, the gifts of the Holy Spirit and its sacraments, as well as Mass and prayer. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you peoples have been enlightened on what the 10 Commandments and what do they mean and how those commandments can be applied within the real world. If there is anything that you would like to add or have any other suggestions for other videos that I could make about Christianity and faith, please let me know under my YouTube comments. So anyways, this is all I have to say here, so therefore finally, goodbye for now.